Remember when this guy tried to do a backflip before playing sinkers and floaters?
Very impressive in the warm-ups. And
Let's get it on!
Tamagotchi,
Of Y2K.
The year is 2003. Teens search stores across America for UGG boots, Pixar fans search the ocean for Nemo, and George Bush searched the Middle East for weapons of mass destruction. However, the biggest bomb could be found back home as Geely starring Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez hit theaters nationwide. On the small screen, we got to watch rich people with rich people problems on the OC, rich people with middle class problems on The Simple Life, and rich people with problems understanding the difference between chicken and fish.
Is this chicken what I have, or is this fish? I know it's tuna, but...
However, one of the most popular channels on cable was Spike TV, the channel for men. It answered all of life's most important questions. Ever wonder who would win in a fight, pirates or knights? Deadliest Warriors had you covered. Can you play basketball on trampolines? You bet your ass you can. And Answers took it to a deeper scientific level with questions like, can you fart so hard your balls will explode? Despite all of these incredible shows, there was one show that dominated the channel, and that was Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. Seriously though, if you were ever channel surfing and passed by Spike TV, you were most likely gonna see MXC. Reruns of the show dominated the channel, and you couldn't help but stop and watch as Japanese people tried their hardest to maneuver their way through obstacle challenges with ridiculous commentary. But to tell the story of MXC, we first need to go back to the 80s. This is Paula Beta and Peter Keiko. They're the creators of the show Nightstand with Dick Dietrich on E! The show is a spoof of 90s talk shows like Jerry Springer and Maury. After 4 years of The Nightstand with incredible episodes like Strippers Are Ruining My Marriage and Hooked on Hookers, the show came to an end and both Paul and Peter are looking for their next project, and it's about to come from an unlikely source. Meet Takeshi Kitano. If you're from Japan or a fan of Japanese media, you probably already know Takeshi because he's quite the celebrity in his home country. Western audiences may recognize him from films like Ghost in the Shell, Johnny Mnemonic, or the Japanese classic Battle Royale, which was a role he got because of the television series I'm about to talk about. In 1986, Takeshi's Castle premieres on TBS. No, not the TBS that exclusively airs reruns of Two Broke Girls and The Big Bang Theory. I'm talking about the Tokyo Broadcasting System. Here's the concept. Takeshi is the count who owns a castle and has set up traps and physical challenges to stop competitors from storming it. Honestly, he's basically Bowser. There were obstacle courses, mud runs, and even karaoke. If you were one of the last few people standing, you along with the Count had the opportunity to storm Takeshi's Castle. Hey, that's the name of the show! I watched a bunch of episodes of Takeshi's Castle for this video, and I didn't find one instance that the contestants successfully beat Takeshi. The show was hosted by Hayato Tani and Takeshi himself, and it became a huge hit in Japan. It even spawned its own Famicom game that is notoriously difficult and confusing. It required a power pad to play, which looks like it only worked half the time, although it was probably more functional than the Xbox Kinect. A quick side story because I found it funny. At one point during Takeshi Castle's run, he was replaced with a papier-mâché version because at the time, Takeshi was forbidden to appear on television after going all Alec Baldwin on a reporter. He was also attacked by someone wielding a pickaxe, but we don't have time for that right now. On October 19, 1990, Takeshi's Castle came to an end. Fast forward to the early 2000s when Paula Beta and Peter Keiko became aware of Takeshi's Castle. They see it as an opportunity to English dub it and turn it into a competition show for Spike TV. However, they have plans to completely overhaul the narrative and use this as an opportunity to create their own insane characters in a fictional, nonsensical game show called Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. The show was still hosted by Takeshi and Hayato, but now they had fictional alter egos Kenny Blankenship and Vic Romero. Kenny was a high school dropout, always commenting on female competitors' bodies, and is very unprofessional. But he does make 10 times the amount as his co-host Vic because his uncle owns the network. Speaking of Vic, he's the straight man to his co-host who actually takes the competition seriously. He's a former news anchor who isn't afraid to share his dark past of failed marriages, drug abuse, alcoholism, and a love of easy women on live broadcast. Vic would smack Kenny in the back of the head with a paper fan many times throughout the series and had famous phrases like, "Good to know," and "Right you are, Ken."
You're gonna be done nuts unless you get to the top 10. Ooh.
Each episode was split into teams, like donors versus addicts, or amusement park workers versus sex workers, two of America's oldest professions, and the contestants were introduced with funny names followed by either their occupation or a little fun fact about them. For example, you had Sherbert Tights, who teaches balloon puppetry to self-abusers, or Karen Griffin, who paints life-size boogeymen in children's closets. Honestly, I could go on and on with some of these names because there were some really funny ones I can't repeat on here or YouTube will demonetize this video. They also used to shout the weirdest things before entering a competition.
I married a man.
Hold me closer, Tony Danza. I hate flowers.
Every episode began the same, with Captain Tennille addressing the contestants and starting the games by shouting,
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
All the women loved him because of his good looks and charm. Plus, who doesn't love a man in uniform? The best character on MXC, in my opinion, was field reporter Guy Ledouche, who lived up to his name. Guy, to put it bluntly, was a pervert. Although he was ahead of his time because he wasn't just inappropriate with female contestants, he was also inappropriate with male contestants. He interviewed contestants after they completed or failed the obstacle, but it usually ended with him groping them or saying something very inappropriate.
I came up short. If only I had this much more,
yeah.
then I would have been fine.
Oh, yeah, you and every other man. I wish I was that much longer.
His bits were a real gem on the show and was just another example of turning these people into larger-than-life, cartoony characters than their real-life counterparts. Now let's get to the real reason we watched MXC, for the games and the crash outs. The one thing that wasn't altered from Takeshi's Castle and the main focus behind the spoof version. I wasn't sure how to go about this part because there were so many games. So I decided to just throw the script away and look over this list of games and talk about some of the competitions I enjoyed and the memories I have of them. The first game that always comes to mind when I think of MXC is Sinkers and Floaters. The reason I think of this particular game first is because of the guy in the intro of this video. Before I even started making this video, I said I need to include the guy who tries to do a backflip and nearly knocks himself out before Sinkers and Floaters. It's one of the biggest memories I've held on to all these years from MXC. Luckily for me, the backflip happens in the very first episode, so I didn't need to wait long during my rewatch. Sinkers and Floaters was a game in which contestants had to run across a pond on rocks. The catch was that some of the rocks were solid, whereas some were just floating on the surface. In my opinion, this was the most dangerous of the games because everyone always ran full speed ahead across those things. You miss one and there's a chance you're going to go down and crash into a solid rock. For example, this girl.
Gonzalez, a turkey jerker from Jackson Hole. Oh!
The only more dangerous game was the winter version of Sinkers and Floaters, where they had to run across heads of snowmen where some of the heads were not attached. Before moving to the next game, I should also mention the commentary when it came to games featuring falling into water, and there was a lot of them. Kenny would always claim that they were falling into something nasty like human sweat or sewage. It was usually themed to whatever two teams were participating that week. The next game that comes to mind is Log Drop. The best way to describe it was running across giant rolling pins. And just like Sinkers and Floaters, one of the best strategies was just to run as fast as you could across them. Strangely, the main thing I remember about this game was Tony Hawk doing it and having no issues. Which kinda makes sense since he made a living on his balance. Wow, this is a long list. I'm gonna have to speed through these the best I can. Wallbangers was a luck-based game in which you ran as fast as you could at a wall of doors. However, some of the doors were paper while others were solid, so people would Wile E. Coyote right into those walls. Sometimes they were paper, but there was a net behind them to catch contestants. Speaking of walls, in Wall Buggers, contestants swung on a rope while wearing a full-body Velcro suit. The goal was to stick to the wall, which is easier said than done. Most contestants would just smack right off the wall. Oh right, Yanking It was another one of my favorite games. Please don't clip that out of context. This was another luck-based game, but it was always funny to see what was on the other side of the wall. Contestants would choose a rope and then compete in a tug-of-war contest, however they didn't know what was on the other side. They could get anything from a sumo wrestler, a cow, a child, or even a bulldozer.
Hey, they got a bulldozer. That's right, Ken. The cons will stop at nothing.
Saddle Swords was the most 80s of the challenges, as contestants rocked roller skates while dressed as horses as they raced other contestants. There were also some obstacles which made for some hilarious crashes.
Number 4, designated mounter. Oh!
The rotating surfboard of death was always fascinating to watch. So many people misjudged when to get on the surfboard. It was a surfboard that went around in a circle, and sometimes it was a team game. I remember one where a woman was waiting for the surfboard and her partner pushed her off before she was ready. Maybe these are harder than they look and I'm just being cocky, but I really want to try this one. Prison Break was usually a game that would kick off the show because it involved a lot of people, climbing over a wall and sliding down on the other end, or vice versa. This one, a lot of contestants would work together to get over the wall. Dope on a Rope and Pole Riders were similar games. With Dope on a Rope, the contestants had to run and swing across water and try to land on a small platform. And Pole Riders was similar in that you had to land on a platform but using a pole. Will saying the name of this game get me demonetized? Let's find out together, because the next game is called Hand Job. This is where contestants dressed as giant hands and were asked trivia questions. The first contestant to run and fall flat on their face on the correct answer moved on. The difference between the MXC version of this game and Takeshi's Castle was on Takeshi's Castle the questions were actual trivia, whereas MXC the questions were a bit off the wall.
Question 5. Your dentist has just finished drilling in your mouth. How many seconds before you have the urge to spit or swallow?
Legal Maze was another popular game appearing on many episodes of MXC. In this, contestants ran through a maze of doors while being chased by minions. This was another luck-based one because many of the doors led to water, whereas one led to victory. Dash of Death was a straight-up obstacle course. Contestants ran across a narrow pathway while avoiding getting hit by swinging balls, these spooky alien things, a grinder, a trampoline, and a little rope swing at the end. Teetering Temple of Crippling Doom was a pretty self-explanatory just looking at it. Contestants had to run across dominoes to the other end. One weird thing I remember about this is the weird-looking creature thing that would blow some sort of powder on the contestants. On this and the bull riding game, what even is it? Maybe some of my viewers know. The last 4 games are all ball related, which is kind of appropriate for this show. In Mud Butlers, you would roll a ball down a pinball type board, rush down to the bottom and try to catch the ball in a pan. Again, luck based because you never knew where the ball would end up once you got down there.
On the internet, and there she is, and oh!
Dirty Muddy Balls was simply a soccer ball being launched into the air and the contestants had to catch it. It ended up with a lot of people taking balls to the face, so the jokes just wrote themselves there. Brass Balls involved contestants catching a ball and needing to carry it to the other side of an unstable bridge while minions shot balls at them. And the final game I'm going to talk about is Boulder Dash. This game usually closed out the show. Contestants ran up a hill while avoiding falling boulders. It was like the reverse Indiana Jones. There were little holes on the side you could duck into, but once again the minions were there to cause trouble by pushing you back onto the course. The one thing I remember most about this game is when Kenny decided to try it out for himself. And even though they aren't real boulders, of course, he got hit hard by one in the head, and it looked like it crushed his neck.
Are ready to take on the second boulder.
Now I know I didn't cover all the games, and I'm sorry if I missed one of your favorites, but this list is way too long, and I wanted to discuss some of my favorites and the ones I remember the most. Unfortunately, after a 4-season run, MXC came to an end on February 9th, 2007. By the way, if you think some of these games look familiar to Wipeout on ABC, well, so did the Tokyo Broadcasting System because they sued and settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. I should also mention that this and Takeshi's Castle was also a big inspiration behind the game Fall Guys, which features some of the games you'd see on this program. Let's quickly talk about the elephant in the room. Did MXC age well? Probably not. In fact, some of the jokes may seem problematic now. Was it making fun of Japanese people? Yes, but in a lighthearted way. It was my first introduction to not only Japanese culture, but a vastly different culture outside my own. I was a big Pokemon fan, but I was young, so I never connected the two until later in life. If it wasn't for MXC, I may have never sought out shows like Cowboy Bebop or films from Studio Ghibli. In fact, watching this made me want to travel there and have as much fun as they seem to be having. It was adults getting to be kids again. And let's be completely honest here, out of all the things that aired on Spike TV, this aged like a fine wine in comparison. Takeshi's Castle actually made a return in 2023. Takeshi was back, but from the episodes I've seen he wasn't as involved as he was in the original. However, there will never be anything as good as the original's retro charm. MXC became such a pop culture talking point for many kids in the Western world, and it happened in only 81 episodes. If you get a chance, check out some of Takeshi's Castle, because as many games as there were on MXC, there were 3 times as many on Takeshi's Castle. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and also don't forget to join our free Discord community. The link is in the description below. And remember, every like this video gets goes to the hospital bills of these contestants. Bye everyone.
Right, girls?